I tell you what, I messing around with this long enough. We're just going to go with it again. Um, why is that? God damn it! I don't know. All right. Let's just go with what we got. All right. Good evening. This is the strategy podcast for Friday night, April 10th. Thank you for your patience. All right, so I had a 2 hour session with Dr. Tharp tonight. We're working on an adaptive hybrid trading workshop. We're going to do streaming in June with his super traders and clients. And so he asked me to do a podcast with him on Monday, and we did a rehearsal of it today. And the genesis was what he would like me to explore was basically how my thinking has evolved over the last 5 years, my application of systems thinking to my current systems, and why am I teaching what I'm teaching now instead of the older stuff. And this was sort of this is a summary of that presentation to just kind of give you a grounding in where I am right now. And that is in the last 25 years that I've been teaching there, I have been really more of a systems trader, or teaching specific techniques, teach the rules of a system and how to apply it, and then try to help people take on those rules. Where I've been more successful as a teacher, though, is kind of teaching people how to fish as opposed to giving them a fish. And so my thinking has evolved into more of a ecosystem approach. And I'm going to cover two different things of that on Monday. One of them is the ecosystem approach externally, which deals with the body of knowledge, and you guys have heard me talk about that before. And that's basically this slide, in which I talk about my top level process being plan, prepare, so that I'm ready to trade. And then when I'm ready to trade and I get the signals, I can then execute and assess that trade, each and every trade, the same way each and every time. And so on the planning, what I am doing is essentially aligning my beliefs about the market and my top-down view that deals with the strategy of who I am and what I see in the markets, the operations where I focus my resources and efforts on certain tasks, and then tactics about how I trade the individual trades, where I'm looking at outcomes, performance, and the sustainability of good research practice and good trading practice. My preparation really is things like trade framing, execution stops, position sizing stops, the management of trades, the rehearsals of those things, preparing by understanding my histogram and the average win and rehearsing the 2-hour battle drill, being able to get into the zero state, applying all of these principles of learning is in the preparation of the trades. And then the execution of the trades is up in these areas where I'm concerned about time, will, pattern, and money, detecting signals, deciding which ones to take, delivering the trade as planned and rehearsed, and then assessing the performance, then using my blueprint of the market to navigate between the market itself, sectors and targets and different frames that I prepared, and then maintaining my mental and emotional state in the zero state. My assessment then comes in this area where when the day is done, that I'm doing my daily after action reviews. I'm committing to my 4-column learning journal to really analyze the things that happened. I'm using the discussions in the chat room and my accountability partners to discuss the insights from my personal learning journals and the things that come up in the monthly coaching calls. I mark up my charts so that I have case studies to examine. I look at my trade log and statistics to see if my performance is in tune with what I've designed. I study the histogram of my results to make sure I'm understanding that stuff correctly. I use the I am assessing my mindfulness throughout the day and throughout all of my plan, prepare, execute, and assess. I'm using these techniques to make sure that I'm mindful about what I'm doing. I'm committed to my long-term learning. Then after I go through that assessment, to connect to my ongoing personal learning to make sure that I'm using all the ways of knowing, that I'm accounting for my house of trading, that I've updated my model base, studied my system strategies, techniques, and tips, that I've looking at what I can learn for all the different domains. I'm trying to improve the body of knowledge that comes out in the teaching and updating my book, my professional body of knowledge book. I use these principles to manage my ongoing learning, and I have those resources in hand to help me with my learning. And then in terms of management of all this stuff, I have done the parts analysis to make sure that I'm acting in a business-like manner, and then I have partners and internal parts of me that are performing all of these functions, that I'm using systematic processes in everything that I do, that I approach new trading systems and strategies in this fashion where I can scale up towards full production before I take on full risk, that I'm incorporating all of Mintzberg's insights about management, science, art, and craft knowledge, and that I maintain a master list of things to do that comes from all of the study and effort and reflection in all of these areas in order to focus my use of time on the most important things. So when I was talking with Van, what I pointed out was that this is what I mean by the ecosystem approach with respect to the comprehensive body of knowledge that I'm engaged in. At the same time, I have an internal wiring diagram that is not static, but this is what I'm like when I'm actually, trading and working, whatever, that inside this inner bracket, I am very much driven by my purpose and a sense of managing. The very next thing I think about is where's the risk, what's the problem, and then what method can I use to try to address that problem. I am in constant search for solutions. I put that in brackets with a lowercase s and tentative solutions. By trying to create as many tentative solutions as I can, it gives me something to consider, all the different ways I might address the problem or opportunity. And I use that as a way to generate insights in order to make decisions that lead to actions that can then be assessed. So that's sort of the process system that's inside my head all the time for everything that I'm doing. I rely on this section over here as my building blocks of mental concepts and habits and values informed by a sense of duty. So these are the building blocks that allow me to behave in this top level domain. And then I also realize that I am just one actor in a larger environment that is filled with actors and forces and structures and context. So there is this rich ecosystem of which I am just one part, and that inside of me there's all these other competing systems, this hierarchy of systems going on, and that all the time there's this time change. The time is passing, change is happening, performance is being conducted and assessed, and those results have consequences, which updates all of these elements in this ecosystem. So if this body of knowledge is an ecosystem, kind of a static, almost encyclopedia, then this is the action verb that is also part of that ecosystem. This is that knowledge in motion driven by these top level concerns. And so anytime I see problems or opportunities, what is my purpose and what's the ultimate end state I'm trying to achieve? Where's the risk to me being able to achieve that as a result of the new information that's come from the environment? And is there anything about that I can exploit, or does it present a problem that's more normally maybe the problem is, how do I exploit the new information, and what's the best method of doing that? What might solutions look like so that I can figure out deliberately what it is I want to do? So each of these top level concepts then represents a connection to that previous body of knowledge. Well, what that allows me to do then is, in a particular case, if you were on board this week, you remember me talking through this case study in SCO the other day, where, as an example of useful beliefs, Van, hey, do you have any useful beliefs and stuff? What would they be like? I said, well, here's one. I believe that the Z3 pinch, super pinch, can lead to explosive moves, which then have consequences and follow through, and then that can lead to an owl, which has, and then certain beliefs on where the good entries are, and then I can get to a spot where I get 3R in hand, and I have a stop locked in, and then I can start structuring my trade geometry for continuing to exploit that opportunity with markets money. And then in this case, I decided to add the third position at level 2. It didn't pay off, and so we ended up coming out of that with about 4R. And then that was an example of the detect the opportunity, decide what to do, deliver the solution, and then assess it, and then move along, get back to the zero state, immediately ready to trade. And that the way I approach this trading is based on a set of robust beliefs and techniques that I've planned and rehearsed and studied, so that I know what to do in the absence of movement. In other words, a Z3 super pinch. And then I know what to do on breakouts and reversals, and I know what to do after an unambiguous move, and I have an owl and a pocket, and then at a logical breakpoint, how to structure this for big wins. And so this one leads to a 4R win in that application. And then when I look at this one, it's applying the same principles, and you'll remember this one in the same symbol, where trading it in exactly the same way is Z3 super pinch, breakout and scratch, re-entry, and about a 1R win, and then another super pinch, an entry, and now adding positions according to rules. And now it doesn't reverse, it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up, and that one turned into about a 45R win. And so what was an extraordinary move, this is a 3 sigma breakout from where price was to the top of that Z3 Bollinger Band, that if you stack 3 of those on there, that if you were just looking at the local context, a move up to this yellow ball would have been a 9 sigma move, and that might really feel extraordinary based on the previous 30 bars of information. Yeah, that would be an unbelievable move compared to the previous 30 bars. But we know from the range stat that this thing can move $7 or $8. So we can hold two of those thoughts in our mind at the same time. The fact that according to this setup, that would be an unbelievable move, but according to the range stat and the longer term look back, that's not out of the ordinary. And then by just applying the rules the way we practiced, this thing turns into a 45R trade, traded exactly the same way as we traded this one, but it just didn't. This one gave us 4R, not because we were smarter or stupid or didn't know. We followed the rules and applied them error free. It just happened that the market decided to give us 4 on this one, and the market decided to give us 45 on this one if we traded it that way. So the opportunity was always there, but we're not trying to make predictions. We're just trying to be prepared. So that was an example of the reasons to invest the effort in learning the ecosystem and mapping those internal processes was for me to be able, in the time of execution, to be able to execute without thinking about it, without suffering on each and every little decision, but really to have invested the time in the preparation and practice to free up all that effort so I could sense and respond, so I could detect, decide, deliver, and assess without having to go through the existential worry about what should I do on this trade and what does it all mean and how does it fit together and what if I did something. I'm not doing any of that stuff in the middle of the trade. In the middle of the trade, I'm not thinking. I'm simply executing. But that's based on a wiring diagram on the inside of my head, which says when it's time to plan, plan. When it's time to prepare, prepare. And then when you're ready, stop that and then go execute and assess. But that means I got to do the plan and prepare correctly so that when I declare I'm ready to trade, I have the confidence. I can just execute. And then I can go through this systematic process of assessment of the actual trades and then connecting that to the learning so that I can make sure that the things that I'm learning and the things that I'm planning and the things that I'm preparing and the execution that I'm rehearsing, all of that stuff is the best that I can make it so that I can have confidence to be able to execute without worrying, am I doing the right thing? I mean, to the best of my ability, I'm doing the right thing. And that's what all of these other support processes are doing, is so that I can be free just to execute when it's time to execute. So I'm not suffering in the trade. Where I suffer is in all the hard work I put in on the planning and preparation and execute and assessment. That's the hard work. The execution is just doing what I've been practicing. That's the easiest part of everything because I'm not thinking about it. So that's sort of an overview of what I'm going to talk about with him on his podcast. And that's what I mean by the ecosystem approach, which is that first wiring diagram. And then ecosystem B is that process diagram of what's inside my head. And some of the other points that I'm going to make to the audience there is that, look, transition is the normal state of the world. It's not a static place that's frozen. It's always in a process of change and becoming. That's the normal state of the world. And so if that's the state of the world and therefore the state of the market, then your trading must be adaptive. And therefore your learning must be adaptive. And the market is the university and the test of your ability to be adaptive, your ability to continuously learn. And that your system is not the rules that you write down on the paper, but what you actually do in the moment of execution, plus what you do in the plan, prepare, and assess. Your system is all of that. Your system is all the things that you do, intentionally or not, planned or not. All the things that you do is your system because you are that system. Now, how much of your system is intentional? How much of the things you do are because you made a decision to do it? Or are you relinquishing control to external forces that are triggering you to do things and you're just acting or reacting? If so, then that's your system. Your system is to trust in random number generators and random sensory experiences. That's your system. Your system is what you do. So some of the important mantras that I live by, that plan, prepare, execute, and assess. The detect, decide, deliver, and assess. The understand, visualize, and describe to make a decision. And then directing, leading, and assessing. Notice the appearance of that word assess in all of those models, why that matters. Results actually matter, and do something about it. And then the framework of strategic, operational, and tactical, so that I can incorporate wide views, intermediate views, and narrow views in both time and space. And that means when I'm thinking strategically, I'm looking back 10 years, 20 years, or I'm looking globally across all of the sectors. When I'm thinking tactically, I'm thinking about 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute, 20 minute, 30-minute charts, where I'm looking at a specific symbol or a specific sector or comparing two sectors in tactical. And then operations is that connection between that broad view and the world of action, how I am arranging things in time and space in order to ensure that the things that I do are connected to my larger, most important strategic purposes. And then the other mantra, sustain, improve, and action. That is the process that leads me to continuous improvement, to maintain the things that are working, to improve the things I'm not satisfied with, even if they're working. Maybe I'm not satisfied, but sustain and improve, and then leading to a specific action to make an improvement. So the practical application of all this stuff, and Van says, well, what's the practical application? I said, well, the case study I just showed you, in which we saw earlier this week, was 45R intraday in SCO this week. And it was traded in exactly the same way as when it earned 3R yesterday. So it earned 45R on Wednesday, and it earned 3 or 4R yesterday. Same symbol, same time of day, same techniques, both positive expectancy, but the result was a function of what the market would provide. Like, I don't get to choose what size fish is going to bite on my hook. I don't know if it's going to be a whale that jumps up on the beach or it's just going to be a tuna. But I've got to be prepared to trade it based on the first tug of the line. I got to bait the hook, and I got to keep my boat prepared and all my gear ready. So the point is that it's exactly the same risk managed technique. The only difference was letting the market decide how much to pay for the science project. My job was to get my risk from out of the trade. Once I've got my risk out of the trade, then that's a sign that my ego or my identity or my beliefs are no longer in the trade. If the trade is going to be this or the trade is going to be that, and that makes me have tension between what's happening and what I think is going to happen. I don't care what's going to happen. I'm going to try to pay attention to figure out what is happening and not spend time in my head trying to guess what it might happen or is going to happen or should happen. I have my indicators to help me describe what is happening to trigger decisions. But once I've got my risk out of the trade by getting to no lose plus dinner for two, then I'm no longer at risk in the trade. I got my seed capital out, and now I can adopt the position of the disinterested observer. And I find that stance to be very healthy and helpful in managing my emotional bank account. That's what allows me to go after each trade intraday in the same mindset without letting the results of any one particular trade make me behave any differently. Like after the 45R and SCO, I didn't take the next trade any different than the way I always take every other trade. I just get my one position on, try to get to no lose plus dinner for two, get two positions in if I can, get those in the money, and then start structuring that trade for what could be a whale. I want to be in the position where I have two scoops in hand and the thing is poised to make an amazing move that could be a huge payoff far beyond my normal win or even a good win. I want it to be a whale that just completely just disrupts the whole But yeah, so my position is to always is to try to put myself in as many of those positions as I can. And then if it works, it's great. If not, I take my 2 or 3 or 4 hour, whatever it was, and just cycle to the next trade. So that's what I mean by getting my risk removed, my ego's not in the trade, being the disinterested observer. That's the essential elements. So that's a quick look at what I'm going to cover probably in 90 minutes or 2 hours with Van and all the super traders and all that jazz. They're going to put their own overlay of understanding and theory and practice and all that other stuff. And I'm just going to lay out what it is that I do and then try to answer their questions. I'm not really worried about their questions. I'm just going to answer them the best way I can according to the way I understand and the way I organize my world for my trading, and they can do with it whatever they want, to include disregard it or not believe it or go elsewhere. I don't care. Not my job to decide for them. My job is to continue to try to discover myself in all of this and to share it as much as I can in a language that allows you guys to appreciate it and ask questions. And then iron sharpens iron. So to that end, I want to. That's all I wanted to say about that. Unless you have questions, and then you chunk them into the text box there. I do want to just. I wanted to cover something that I thought was important from this weekend. So this is that Talent LMS that's for folks that are on the Platinum program. So we're starting to accumulate a number of really good courses. So Bill Scheit is putting together the drumming courses and our little drum circle stuff. So what I realized is I got about 25, almost 30 years of trading case studies and presentations and practices and videos and lessons and all that stuff. And so I've sort of stayed connected to all that. Some old timers in here like Bob, who I see have been along the way. But not everybody has. So I decided what I needed to do is get all this stuff documented into chunks. And so we started this past year doing things like the Tortoise Boot Camp. So the boot camp is just one of the courses that's in that library. There's other ones. There's courses on how to read the daily report, the weekly report, the 37 strategies document, 101 flashcards, Catherine's first 50 nuggets as a black belt in tortoise trading, the things she learned, the first 50 aha moments she got along the way, Doc Morrison's Forex version 0.8, what will become 1.0 and 2.0, my advanced swing trading, the things I'm doing on coaching and psychology. These little nightly strategy podcasts to get us through coronavirus are all being documented as lessons here. A coaching course where there's 300 or 400 marked up case studies where people have asked me for feedback, and I've given them feedback on their case studies, and learning occurs. A focused course on just the collapsing dragon technique. There's about 400 case studies in there that only address my favorite pattern, the collapsing dragon. There's about 500 case studies in just the frog, and about 300 in just the MACD histogram, 400 in pocket trading, 300 on the RLCO patterns, about 200 on the RLFF technique, 350 on the RLXD, a bunch on the super pinch, and when you're in sideways quiet, about 500 on the owl, about 200 on this new emerging technique of visual box trading that you saw me talk about in the strategy. So there's a bunch of focused systems that may appeal to you, but things like the boot camp and the broad strategies and the daily and weekend reports are broad technical technique lessons that support any of these focused systems and strategies. There's one in here. There's 1,000, 990, but I'm going to add 10 more so I get over 1,000. There's 1,000 case studies in that quizzes and case studies course, each one of which is a one-pager that highlights some combination of essential techniques That's sort of like a test on learning. Danny's putting together about a dozen lessons already on how to use the TC2000 bundle to find different patterns and strategies and use them intraday and for swing trading to kind of wean you off my daily report if you feel so inclined. That TC2000 bundle is just flat amazing, and he's showing how to use that power tool. The research presentations is going to be a set of courses where we go back to 2009, and I'll be uploading all of the videos of all the black belt tests. So all the people that came to those research weekends all had their presentations peer reviewed by at least two people and by all of us in that session, and we came up with some amazing insights. All of those are like black belt tests. Everybody that suffered through that is a black belt in tortoise technique and are capable of developing their own learning program and developing themselves into powerful traders. That's what a black belt in tortoise techniques are. So I'm going to put all of those in here as examples and just as basic good learning material. There's probably there will be 150 presentations in that one, each of which is about an hour long with all our group commentary and then all their supporting slides. So that's what the learning ecosystem is going to be all about. I just feel like at age 62 and mindful of my own mortality and triggered by this pandemic that we got to have a way to get all of this knowledge collaboratively generated into a learning ecosystem that we can all find our way through. So here's my plan on that, is that, folks that are in the platinum program have access to all of those courses for as long as they are members in good standing at $400 a month. Then as you go through, you'll find your own level through there of the things that you want to work on. I'm going to recommend, if you're just starting off, that you look at the boot camp and the daily weekly report and these flashcards. From that, you'll be able to figure out which techniques really matter to you, which ones are the most significant. And then you go to that focus course and then start developing expertise. On any of the lessons, on any of those courses, and you got a question, all you got to do is send me the question and the slide that you're referring to, and I'll answer it to you by updating that slide and putting a video explanation on there. And then that lesson will be better for everybody in the future, and you'll get your direct feedback in that form. So that's the plan, to continue to develop this in a collaborative way. And you guys will tell me which ones need more clarification. Instead of me trying to figure out which ones you need to know, I'll let you tell me in the form of the questions that you ask me. So that's how that's going to be developed. I'm twisting Kim Anderson's arm to put together a course on sideways markets and bear markets for us to take advantage of her brain power and her bounce system, for example. And then the coffee talk that Bob and I do periodically will start informing this for longer term courses. And so I have the ability on Talent LMS to create an unlimited number of courses with unlimited number of lessons. So that's what I'm just going to keep doing. It may come to pass that, hey, we need a focused course that incorporates these ideas. I'll put together that course and it will become available in here, and everybody with a library card can access it. So I think that is where the workshop, the annual workshop at $400 a month, is an absolute steal. It's crazy inexpensive. In my view, the one-time purchase of the TC2000 bundle is a no-brainer, and you can implement all of this stuff on your own and become your own black belt. Bill Scheit's drumming courses are how I maintain my sanity. That's us drumming in a circle. That's Bill's lessons and drumming with his master sensei. Right. So if you go to the boot camp, let me pick one that I was just working on. The Collapsing Dragon, because that's my favorite. If I go to that course, These are all the lessons. It starts off with, it'll have some descriptions of what the dragon is, and then each one of these is its own um, specific. Oh, this one, I'm sorry, I've got the first 47. So each one of those is a lesson. So if I did this one, CD 2016-05-17, Disney second trade, I click on that. I hope this is a good one. And it is. This is a case of a, let me see if I can expand that for you. So this was not even my trade. So here was a from point 1 to 2 to 3. Now from 1 to 3 is a lower high in the hump of the dragon, and this is the belly of the dragon at 2. So this yellow dot is collapsing dragon number 1, and you'd have an execution stop here. So this was a trade that somebody said, how would I trade this? And now what you have, so you could be short at the yellow dot with the stop here, and it never got hit. And then later you have a second collapsing dragon setup where this is now the red 1 is the high, 2 is a new low, 3 is a lower high. That's even more pronounced. What's better is that the number 2 is lower than it was here. So you already, and then the hump here is higher than the hump here. So you have this almost a double setup. And now at the second yellow dot, you can get short a second one or re-enter if you did, if you got out of this one. And then you got this massive downward move. And then your execution stop from 3 is probably the Z3 line or the hump of the dragon or the VWAP, and it never got touched. And that's like a 20-cent risk. And you got short at 100.75 and it moved 99 cents, it moved $1. So that's 5 execution R in hand, and it never looked back. So that's why the collapsing dragon is my favorite pattern. When it fails, it just, oh, by the way, there's an owl over here too. I'm not even, so every one of these is an example of a collapsing dragon. The Caveman series from, oh yeah, this was me. I was trading from my phone, and I could tell by inspection that I got short here at this red dot and covered, and got short and scratched, got short and covered, and got short and hadn't covered yet. This was me trading from our auditorium using the patterns of the collapsing dragon by inspection. When you look at 1,000 of these charts, you can see those patterns without even having the indicators on. You know what to look for. So that's where you can end up getting to. So that's the collapsing dragon lesson, or that course. Let's see here. Where was the other one? Oh yeah, the quizzes and case studies. This is the one, if I remember, has 990. Yeah, this one has 990. Every one of these has something important about it. There's one from 2017, 0510 on Johnson & Johnson. So here's a blank. It was a maximum pinch. So you would call up that blank and then see what you could figure out, and then the solution. So the blank would look like this. And now describe the patterns that you see. And then I should have stayed there. Then the solution. Looking for that solution. Oh, I'm going to pick a different one. I see the word solution. So the solution then would be one where I've gone through and marked up the chart of all the things that I'm looking for. And this is how I scan for opportunities and figure out what patterns I want to trade. And then that helps me look for lessons and patterns in my forward trading. So I'm doing analysis in here. So each one of these items 1 through 5 become insights that were available from that particular quiz. So there's about 1,000 quizzes just waiting to be explored in that course. So that's an example of this talent LMS. I wish I'd have figured this out 10 years ago. But again, you got courses on the super pinch, visual box trading, strategic and systems thinking has about 200 lessons of all types, etc. So that's what I want to say about that. Let's just do a quick run, with your permission. Let's do a quick run through of the daily report, or the weekend report, since it's Friday. Bear with me. Thought I had already opened that up. Here we go. Boy, is this thing slow. Probably doesn't help that I've got 15,000 probes open at the same time. Thank you for your patience. Here we go. Okay, so just real quick, fast, and in a hurry, the weekend report. So we are in bearish neutral right now. So the volatility has started to normalize. We see that reflected in the risk Z over here that is now up above 1. So we're in risk on conditions for swing trading. Holy smokes, who'd have thunk that? We are overbought strongly on both the 3 and the 10-day score. The blended monthly rebalancing is firmly in defense because there's miles to go before we can sleep on this one. ETF2 is also in cash. So these are all tactical opportunities for more active traders. On the monthly market health check, make it a little bit easier to read. Yeah, so I'm using this one to kind of assess where we are in that price ladder. So I look at fair value here at about 240. We're well above that at 278. We're on the monthly, we're almost back to the entering the river, and there's the Bollinger Band mean, and then the far side of the river. The dragon just barely rolled over. It almost didn't even notice this. It would treat this as an anomaly. It's above fair value and coming back towards the river. This will, and this is the long-term guys hoping that this was just an aberration. And then the upside price levels for the monthly guys. Weeklies, It's a little more tactical here. We had 2 really strong weeks that closed very, very well going into a long weekend. We're back inside the dragon and inside the river, and now we got the dragon spine, the RL30, the Bollinger Band mean, fair value at 310, and then we're within 18% of the all-time swing high. And this is how far off the bottom we've come. But if it fails here, skin of the dragon and the former Z3, the weekly low, Z minus 2, the belly of the 10, the RL or the Z3, and then the maximum excursion down here to about 218. So in a weekly, there's a lot more concerns down in here. And all it would take would be some news about the virus mutating or people overreacting to the economic numbers that are going to come in about unemployment and cases and all that stuff, and then political infighting as people try to divide up trillions of dollars and who's going to win and who's going to lose and screw the people. So that could cause this to be a dead cat bounce. So all of these prices on the downside are certainly within reason. We were just there 2 weeks ago. So you're not allowed to be surprised. And remember, we are deep in the winter on the weekly. On the daily, you heard me talk about this on the speed run and all that. So we're in great shape. On the we 2 days have closed above the Bollinger Band mean, and now the price targets on the way up are just getting ready to come into the summer on the daily. So I will feel comfortable when we get to when this gets into the weekly. So this is going to take about 3 weeks of continuous no panic selling. If there's no panic selling for 3 weeks, then this could roll over into the spring and start moving up. Meanwhile, the blended month rebalancing, you can see who the big winners were this week and this month. All of them are underneath their was it 4-month moving average, so they're all cash. But this, you start to see the real differentiation between who's winning and who's losing in terms of the recoveries. So that's where the momentum focus ought to be. Things like materials. Look at materials, 21% up, while the Dow is up 12.6. While the S&P is up 12. So the Dow's been better than the S&P 500. And basic industries materials has been better than the Russell, which was up 18%. So that ought to tell you something. Consumer staples only up 5%. That's hard to understand, isn't it? And then emerging markets only up 6%. So everybody's watching the U.S. This is all U.S. all the time. And now you see who the leaders are. Mid caps, finance, of course, they're getting free money. Real estate, for some reason. Here's what I think is happening in real estate. It doesn't matter who the tactical owner is. The value of the property is not going to go to zero. Now, people may change ownership, and that's what all that free money's going to do. And now they're jockeying to see who's going to get to be the last man standing. Who's the one that gets to own that real estate that's being protected as the store of value? That's what I think is happening. That's my interpretation. On the ETF 32 portfolio, same thing, but now you can scan this yourself for looking for who are the big winners. And then on the Dow 30, who are the big winners? Goldman, Morgan, American Express, and Boeing. Gee, 3 out of the 5 big winners on 1 week, 3 out of 4 were the big banks. Imagine that. Sector spiders, who were the big winners? Retail, home builders, banks, regional banks. Oh, that's America right there. ETF Max, you can kind of do the same thing. This one, because it's finding the ones that are on the blend, this one is not as reliable because the ones that were massively good had horrible weeks, because this is all the defensive plays like the VIX and precious metals, and they all got smashed this week. So that one's not as helpful. Shifting to the daily, or no, I'm sorry, this is still a regional report. It's the U.S. large caps over here. That's where all the juice is going. So it's the U.S. all the time. Gold and treasuries had big weeks and months, and technology still doing okay. Energy getting smashed. Let's shift to the daily. So the daily report, all of the broad indexes are below their 200-day moving average. So the overreaction system treats that as a dead cat bounce until proven otherwise. What I would say is don't automatically short that, because this is a once in a century, at least once in a generation anomaly. So I would wait to see evidence of failure before getting short. And then I would use intraday techniques to be short rather than just playing mechanical rules. I would study the 10-day max pains as opportunities to buy quality on sale. And I would look at the min pain as the ones where these are the strongest relative strength winners. Lots of dojis on Friday, or on Thursday, I should say. And you can see the winners: Travelers, Morgan, Goldman, and Dow Chemical. In the ETFs, real estate, financials, the Russell was up huge, 4.8, while the market was only up 3. So that was guys willing to hold a risk over the long weekend for the big pop on Monday. Now, many things are now across the Bollinger Band and out of the river on the far side. That's all these guys here. So XLB, Materials, Nucor Steel, Johnson & Johnson, Walmart, Merck, and Verizon, Pfizer, all the big names. Walgreens still tests out well on the test of a 10-day high because it was a laggard in that sense. Lots of daily squeezes. You're going to see this happen every time there's a lot of volatility, like there has been, but also a relatively compressed trading day on Thursday. That means they're all poised for a explosive move to the upside. And this gives you the mechanical trading data to do that. Swing trading one day at a time. I covered all of this during the speed run and the closure report, so I'm not going to repeat any of that stuff. And we've gone for an hour already. So that's everything I wanted to cover today. No podcast tomorrow night. So that's Saturday. I'll do a refresh on Sunday at 8 o'clock for any current ideas and maybe some trade frames. And then what I'd like you to do is you guys have been suffering through these nightly podcasts, if you're in the sound of my voice, for 3 weeks now. So now, if you've got specific questions you'd like to ask, please do so. What I'm going to tell you is, if you're in the sound of my voice, there's a $1,000 coupon for the TC 2000 bundle. But I've given people 6 months to go for the discount program and the TC 2000 discount, and so I feel like I've done my part to set people up for success. So those programs are no longer available at the old prices. The discount program's up to 10 grand now, if you want lifetime discount on everything. But I will extend the $1,000 coupon for the TC 2000 bundle if you're in the sound of my voice, and remind me to give you a discount. So that's everything I wanted to cover for tonight. You guys take good care. Be safe and sound this weekend. Commit to the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Make haste slowly. Take good care of those around you and be strong for them. And that starts with you being healthy and strong for yourself and being fearless. Respect the opponent, but don't be afraid. All right? Keep your risk measured and your powder dry. Take good care, and we'll see you in the chat room.